And speaking of player that you just mentioned, each year UEFA names a Champions League player of the season, an award given out to the best player of the tournament. We're going to make a little bit of a forward-looking prediction on who we think might be the player of the season, leaning back on some of the productivity and things that we've seen on the field. So with that said, who is your Champions League player of the season?
Yeah, I think I spoiled it a little bit. It's going to be Salma Paralluelo for Barcelona. I'm going to stroll over into your group and your squad to poach her for this pick. I know we'll talk about young players later, and she's only 21, but I'm elevating her to the best player overall category. And when we talk about young players, I'll do the non-Salma division when I make that pick. Paralluelo is number 1 in goals per 90 minutes, goals plus assists per 90 minutes, non-penalty expected goals per 90 minutes, non-penalty goals per 90 minutes, and shots on target. She has 5 goals, 1 assist. She's contributed 2.9 XG. She has 16 total shots. She has 10 shots on target, and she has 12 shot creating actions. For a forward, that's just a really impressive number. You're not always in a position to make the last pass. For her to be able to stack all that together, she's just an offensive juggernaut in her own. She's a system on her own. She's an offense on her own. And then you pair her with these other world-class players that you have on Barcelona. For me, and this is going to go back to it, we joke, I like to have caveman brain of whatever sport I'm watching. Do you score? Do you put the ball in the net? Do you put the ball in the basket? Do you run the ball into the end zone? Whatever the sport is, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, you do the thing where you score. I like you as a player. I think you're the best player. But the more I realize, and we've joked about it in this program, but you compared her to Kylian Mbappe during the World Cup, and I was like, whoa, that's fast. That's a heavy comparison, and you were 100% right. I also think if you squint, there are shades of Cristiano Ronaldo in Paralluelo's game, her size and her speed and her decisiveness. I think you can see some of CR7. But the thing that really blows me away are the pieces of her game that remind me of Brazilian Ronaldo. Old man corner here. Brazilian Ronaldo, R9, was really one of the first scorer attacker players that I really loved growing up as a kid. And he had a run there where he was just the most spectacular player in the world. Where I think Paralluelo reminds me of him is that she has this intersection of skills where on one hand, she's able to finish from any angle with either foot from seemingly any range. And then you cross that with her uncanny ability to be in the exact right position for her teammates to get her the ball. So it's not only do I have the absolute perfect touch, I'm also almost always in the right place. Of course, she is aided by Aitana Bonmatí, who you don't need to be in the perfect position for her to get you the ball, but I won't hold that against Paralluelo. You have great service coming in. You still have to do the thing where you score it. So for me, I'm going to give the edge to Salma here. I think a superlative goal scorer can carry you to win a tournament. And I go back to the 2002 World Cup. Brazilian Ronaldo did that. I think about David Villa in the 2010 World Cup. I think about Megan Rapinoe in the 2019 World Cup. Paralluelo is just on that level. She'll score enough to just win you the whole damn thing.
It's interesting because the Ronaldo comparison, Brazilian Ronaldo, it's very compelling because you close your eyes and you see Ronaldo bringing the ball up from 30 yards out.
Sure.
Dipping and dashing, and we know that Paralluelo could do that. We saw little glimpses of it in the World Cup and obviously in Liga F as well. But for the most part in this tournament, it's all been from pretty close range, right? And it's because Barcelona is so dominant. So it almost feels like that part of her game is dormant.
Yeah.
You just might see it break out. Like an Mbappe, you'll see an Mbappe do this as well, just kind of go seemingly the length of the field. And she has that in her game. And it's almost like she hasn't needed to break it out. And again, we teased it a little bit. If we saw a Lyon match and they're now on the counter and now you can get Paralluelo running against somebody, I think she's got the skills to just be able to, again, flip a game, in the matter of minutes, maybe with 2 runs and 2 goals and just kind of turn a whole game upside down. It just feels like it's bubbling.
Yep.
So I love that pick for player of the tournament. My pick, you could probably guess where I'm going here, Aitana Bonmatí of Barcelona. Yep. According to FBref, she's top 10 in pretty much every offensive category that the website tracks. Total shots, shots on target, non-penalty goals, assists, passes into the penalty area, progressive passes, shot creating actions, goal creating actions, successful take-ons, progressive carries, plus minus key passes, and goals.
Sure.
So no two ways about it. These are video game numbers. Fire up the PlayStation, set your FIFA to beginner, And maybe, just maybe, you might be able to recreate what Aitana Bonmatí is doing to this group. Honorable mention, though, to Caroline Graham-Hansen, who leads the tourney with 8 goal-creating actions, 3 ahead of the next best on that list, Brann Signe Gaupset, by the way. CGH also leads the tourney with 25 shot-creating actions, tied with Lyon's Salma Basha for tops in the tournament. As mentioned up top, CGH leads the tournament with 3 assists alongside Aitana Bonmatí and Ona Battier and some others. But it's worth noting that CGH notched those 3 assists in just 3 appearances. She's having a tremendous tournament so far as well, so I wanted to give her a quick shout out. But my player of the tournament so far, I mean, she's on track to, be in that like GOAT conversation.
Yep.
Like she's tracking towards that at 25, brings her nation a World Cup, dominating Liga F, dominating the Champions League, just far and away the best player in the world. I think I would have loved to see, we might get in the Olympics. We might get to see her against a U.S. side, and against like pretty much a stacked field against a France side in France.
Yep.
I'm just salivating over, just seeing her continue to up the level of competition and add more and more to her legacy. Again, at still a super young age. Again, still just 25 years old. Aitana Bonmatí, my player of the tournament so far.
Yeah, can't argue with it. I think you're totally right. Pretty much every pundit, every list, I know ESPN's top 50 women's footballers in the world had her at number 1. I don't begrudge anybody who puts her at number 1. And I openly admit my goal scoring bias. I think the word I used to describe Bonmatí in the last episode where we talked about her is she's omnipresent. It's like everything on the field, you run it through her, and she's just a good decision-making machine in terms of when to pull back, when to press, when to push, when to kick the ball out wide, when to play through the middle. It's a massive advantage to have. I think you're right. We're making a lot of comps here, but if I'm comparing Paralluelo to R9 or CR7, then I think the natural comp for Bonmatí is some other Barcelona player people may have heard of, Lionel Messi. And that's a heavy comparison to make, but I don't know. We watch the games, bro. Anybody who's seen her play, she's controlling everything. And the ball sticks to her foot. She just has complete control over everything. And now imagine if you had CR7 and Lionel Messi on the same squad. Hard to beat.
And Brazilian Ronaldo, throw him in there.
Yeah,
and
exactly,
Mbappe.
yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Where would you put the over-under for Bonmatí on World Cups? Is it 2?
Oh, boy.
Messi just got his, at a later age. And obviously he's not playing on as stacked a team as the Spain side.
Sure.
Although he's playing on a real team. Argentina has always been in the mix.
Of course.
But never really in that top 2 or 3 teams. Maybe a year here, a year there. But I just kind of feel like we're looking at a 3 or 4 year period where they're just going to win everything. And I think that definitely puts her somewhat into the Messi category, especially considering that the women's game doesn't have the same history as the men's game.
Mm-hmm.
And she seems to be getting better and more effective at a faster rate than everybody else, creating more distance between her and other players on other teams. Maybe on her team, there's players that are just kind of keeping up, or maybe they're just kind of feeding off each other. You mentioned your penchant for a specific type of player, and I think I could put my finger on it. I think it's the player that has maximum physical tools. Tools, 99.
I do
Strength,
like that, yeah.
Speed, 99. You're a Giannis guy, I'm a Jokic guy.
Yep.
And I think that definitely bared itself out in our picks here for player of the tournament.
I think that's fair. And once you even get into the conversation of I'm talking about a player and I'm setting their over-under on World Cup wins at 1.5, you're talking about an all-time player. And so I think that's really interesting. You talk about how difficult these fields are. If anybody told me that Spain is going to win another World Cup in the next 8 years, so either they go back-to-back winning World Cups or they win the one after this next coming one, I wouldn't be surprised by any means. So that would put Bonmatí at 2. I'm with you on that. I think it's nearly impossible for a player to win 2 World Cups in their career. Maybe it's very improbable to win 2 World Cups in your career. It looks quite possible for a lot of these players on the Spanish national team.
I'm looking at something here. I always kind of lump these players together. So I mentioned Bonmatí's 25. Paralluelo's 20. She's 20 years old, according to FBref. Ona Battier, 24. Olga Carmona, 23.
Yep.
So just those 4. That team is dangerous. I don't care. You could have us 2 and another 5 schlubs playing with those 4, and we're going to at least get to the semis.
I think that's a fair point. We talked about this team going back to the throwbacks or trying to make these comparisons in my head. We talked about the 2010 men's Spanish side, where
Yep.
they win the 2008 Euros, they win the 2010 World Cup, they win the 2012 Euros, and then they kind of flame out in the 14 World Cup. And we use that as like a comparison for U.S. women's national team of like, it's impossible for the run to last forever. But that run, that 6-year run or 4-year run rather, for the Spanish men's national team, not off the table. I mean, Spain, they're walking into the Euros. They're the favorites. As much as I love my Lionesses, we're the defending European champs, you got to think Spain is the favorite to win the Euros too.
I mean, I don't see any other way around it. And again, even between now and then, we've got the Olympics this summer.
Yeah.